Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the ownership situation with the Elks, where it could be heading. So, obviously, the news broke that the team is potentially looking at becoming privately owned for the first time in its team's history. Dating back to 1949, it has been a community owned team through and through, and a board has overseen the operations of the team. 6 of the 9 clubs in the CFL are currently privately owned. Now, the other team in Alberta, they were community owned until 1991 when they were turned over to private ownership. They've been decently successful since then. Well, at least over the last 20 years, it's been stellar. They've been a very consistent club. Got to give them that. But now the Elks are looking at this possibility, and it's something that really has to be very seriously considered, considering for 4 straight years, the club has run a deficit. They did get a little bit of cash after they sold the minor league baseball team that they owned in town. They then moved to Texas. So it's not a dire situation right now, but it is definitely teetering on becoming a very bad situation if not resolved very quickly. Park Lane, a firm in California, is trying to broker the sale of the team. They are also the agency who brokered the sale of the Montreal Alouettes a year or so ago to a private buyer. And I'd say they did pretty well for themselves this year. Not necessarily saying the two are intimately intertwined or that one caused the other, although point I'm trying to get here is that it's not necessarily a bad thing to become privately owned. Still seeing a lot of examples of being very successful. It would leave Saskatchewan and Winnipeg as the only community owned teams should the Elks be bought by a private owner. One of the buyers that is most interesting to me is led by former offensive lineman Garrick Jones and some other former Elk players. Calvin McCarty, I believe, is among them, and there are some others as well. On the one hand, it's very intriguing to have the idea of former players becoming owners of the team. The most positive aspect of this is that you know that they would have the team being successful as their top priority. Would not be like some owners in American sports that literally just want to line their pockets and don't care at all if the team is good or not. No. These guys are going to do everything they can to make sure the team is successful on the field. However, to just play devil's advocate here, just because that is their top priority, it also does not make them necessarily good businessmen. Now, to be clear, does not mean that they are going to make bad business decisions. It just means they understand the football world, but can they also do well on the business end? That is what we would have to see because the two things are not related. Now, of course, me saying that, I acknowledge that there would be advisors, consultants brought in who would give them some fairly good advice, hopefully, should it happen, as to what purchases should be made with the team. So all in all, the potential is there should they make the best bid, although I would not say that it makes them a slam dunk to win the ownership just because they were former players of the team. If there is a different buyer who comes in and they just have a better offer, I would expect them to win the bid and then get the team. So even if it is somebody who has not been part of the organization in the past, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. As far as why this team has been running deficits for the last few seasons after not having any financial troubles for the first 70 years of its history, it is somewhat complicated. Part of it has been after the lost season, you had the rebrand, and admittedly, while the rebrand has been a scapegoat for a lot of problems with the club, I do think that in this instance, you have to seriously look at it as being something because you go for so long as one brand, as Eskimos, people develop loyalty to the Eskimo brand, and now with the name change, you redo all the team's look. People are not going to have that same type of loyalty to what honestly looks like a completely new brand. I mean, let's just be real here. The uniforms have been completely overhauled, and losing the gold numbers, that definitely takes away a distinguishing feature of the Edmonton Football Club. Now, the green jerseys, white numbers. Of course, being in America, of course, I hear they look like the Packers all the time. And now, with the white numbers, it becomes more apt to say things like that. But anyway, I just think not really establishing an identity as the Elks is certainly harmful, but it's again not the only thing because this happened. They started losing money before the name change. How do we, how does the team bring in younger audiences? Well, that's a whole nother discussion. But also, the stadium is another thing. The board has been talking about a new stadium for some time, and their current stadium is adequate. Commonwealth is not a bad venue. However, the attendance has been subpar. They are finally going to close the upper deck this season, which they needed to do because there haven't been too many fans up there, and you have to pay workers to maintain it and everything. It's been an unnecessary expense. So finally close that down, just be done with it. However, there have been some concerns about private ownership as well. If you went and checked out the Reddit thread, which I will link in the description below, it talked about all the prices for everything are going to be jacked up 10 times what they are currently and will price out most of the fans. I think that is definitely over the top, but the idea of things becoming more expensive certainly has to be a valid one. I definitely hope that the new owner, whoever they are, prioritizes fan experience. And I think with seemingly a new brand of with Elks, like you can establish something new with that. And I hope that the new owner has a vision for where they can take the Elks as a brand as well as they can where they can take it as a football team. If both of those things come together, I think that it can be successful. So as the next 2, 3 months go on, there'll definitely be more about this developing story, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.